My name is Brooke Bennett, and I was 33 years old the day my own sister handed me a dress the color of a highway warning sign. Not burnt orange, not copper, not autumn rust, construction cone orange. The kind of color meant to alert people to danger. 7 bridesmaids stood in the bridal suite wearing elegant lavender gowns that swept perfectly across the polished wooden floor. Soft chiffon, fitted waists, delicate shoulders. Every detail coordinated down to the satin heels lined neatly beneath the garment bags. Then there was me, standing in a side hallway holding a wrinkled polyester dress in size 2XL. I wear a small. The fabric smelled like plastic packaging and cheap dye. When I held it up, the shoulders drooped almost to my elbows. The waistline sat somewhere near my hips. It looked less like a bridesmaid dress and more like something abandoned in a clearance bin after Halloween. At first, I genuinely thought there had been a mistake. I walked back into the bridal suite carefully, trying not to wrinkle the thing further. "Sloane," I said quietly, "this can't be mine." My sister barely looked up from her makeup chair. "What? The dress, it's huge and orange." That finally got her attention. She turned slowly, lipstick half finished, and smiled at me through the mirror. It was the only one left. Behind her, 2 bridesmaids exchanged a glance and immediately looked away. I stared at her. "The only one left. Brooke," she sighed, "please don't start today." There it was already, the warning, "Don't start." As if asking why I'd been dressed like a traffic barrel at my sister's wedding was somehow aggressive. I should explain something. In my family, there were always 2 versions of every story. The version that happened, and the version Sloane told people afterward. By the time we became adults, most people only knew Sloane's version. She was younger than me by 4 years, beautiful in that effortless way magazines love, blonde hair that never frizzed. Bright eyes, perfect posture, the kind of woman strangers trusted immediately. Meanwhile, I was the dependable one, useful, reliable, quiet, not glamorous enough to be celebrated, just stable enough to be used. I'm a structural engineer in Raleigh. I co-own a small engineering firm that handles inspections and retrofit design work. Schools, bridges, municipal buildings. Not flashy, but real work. Work that matters. I paid for college myself. Community college first, then NC State. I waitressed nights at a steakhouse for 3 years while taking classes during the day. I graduated exhausted, broke, and proud of every inch I'd earned. Sloane liked telling people she could have done engineering too if she'd wanted. But Sloane quit college during her 2nd year because she needed freedom from academic pressure. Translation. Our parents were paying her rent in Charleston while she spent afternoons posting beach photos online. Still, somehow, she remained the golden child, because Sloane was charming. And charm, in families like mine, outweighs effort every single time. Our mother Diane adored appearances more than truth. She treated reputation like a second religion. Every outfit, every dinner party, every holiday card had to project success. My father Glenn specialized in silence. That was his contribution. He watched things happen and called it peacekeeping. The wedding had consumed my mother for nearly a year because Sloane wasn't just getting married. She was marrying up. Daniel Whitlock came from old Virginia money, vineyards, trusts, land. Generational wealth so deep nobody talked about it directly. The Whitlocks didn't brag, which somehow made them more intimidating. My mother had approached the wedding like a military operation. Every floral arrangement, every menu tasting, every guest placement calibrated for maximum impact on the Whitlock family. I was included in the bridal party because excluding me would look suspicious. That's it, not because Sloane wanted me there. Not because she loved me, because appearances required a sister-shaped accessory in the wedding photos. 3 weeks before the ceremony, Sloane texted me exactly 4 words. "Your bridesmaid number 8. No emoji, no warmth. No can't wait, just a placement assignment." At the time, I ignored the strange wording. Later, I realized the numbering mattered. There were 8 bridesmaids, 7 lavender dresses, 1 orange humiliation ritual. Planned well in advance, but I didn't know that yet. I kept trying to give people the benefit of the doubt because that's what responsible daughters do. We absorb discomfort to keep everyone else comfortable. So I drove 4 hours from Raleigh to Virginia without complaining. I attended the rehearsal dinner. I smiled through awkward conversations. I ignored the weird comments from Sloane's friends. One groomsman actually asked me, "So are you the sister with the issues?" At the time, I thought he was just drunk. I know now he was repeating information he'd already been fed. The rehearsal dinner took place at the Whitlock Vineyard, beneath hanging lanterns and white roses twisted around wooden beams. It looked like a movie set, and somewhere inside that perfect setting, I already felt wrong. Not because of money. I'm not intimidated by wealth. I work with city officials and developers all the time. What unsettled me was the feeling that everyone around me had already read a story about who I was, and I hadn't. People looked at me with polite caution. sympathy, careful smiles, as if I might cry unexpectedly. That feeling got worse when I noticed Daniel's grandmother watching me, Margaret Whitlock, 79 years old, silver hair, straight spine, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She sat near the center of the rehearsal dinner saying very little while everyone else performed around her, but she watched everything: the servers, the conversations, the body language, the moments people thought nobody noticed. At one point during dinner, the waiter skipped our end of the table entirely. Everyone else got wine refills except me. I quietly stood to refill my own water. When I looked up, Margaret was watching, not with pity, with interest. Like she just spotted a crack in a wall everyone else thought was solid. Our eyes met for maybe 3 seconds. Then she looked towards Sloane, then back at me. A calculation happened behind her face. I didn't understand it then. I would later. That night I returned to my hotel exhausted. I sat on the edge of the bed with my shoes still on and stared at the floral wallpaper while trying to convince myself tomorrow would pass quickly. Show up, smile. Stand where they tell you. Leave early. That was the plan. I had no idea my family had spent weeks constructing an entirely different role for me. The next morning I arrived at the bridal suite at exactly 8 o'clock. The room looked like a luxury advertisement. Champagne buckets, fresh flowers, custom robes embroidered with initials, soft music playing through hidden speakers, 7 lavender dresses hanging in perfect symmetry. 7, not 8. One bridesmaid handed another a mimosa and laughed. Nobody greeted me. Sloane sat in the makeup chair scrolling through her phone while 2 stylists hovered around her. "Oh good, you're here," she said casually. "You're getting ready down the hall." Down the hall, the small room, your dress is in there. The small room turned out to be a converted linen closet. No windows, 1 folding chair, a standing mirror leaning against the wall. And hanging alone from a plastic hook was the orange dress. Even then, even standing in that closet holding that absurd piece of fabric, I still wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe shipping issues. Maybe a supplier mistake. Maybe someone panicked last minute. I carried the dress back to the suite. "Sloane," I said carefully, "seriously, this can't be right." She looked at me through the mirror again. "It's the only one left." One bridesmaid snorted into her champagne. Another suddenly became fascinated with her phone. I looked around the room. 7 women in coordinated lavender silk. Then me holding neon polyester like a rejected mascot costume. Why is it 3 sizes too big? It can be pinned. It's bright orange. It's coral. It's not coral. Sloane finally turned fully toward me and smiled, not kindly, patiently, the way adults smile at difficult children. "Brooke," she said softly, "not everything is an attack." That sentence hit harder than the dress, because suddenly I understood something. She expected me to object. She was prepared for it, which meant this wasn't accidental. This was rehearsed. Before I could respond, Aunt Renee walked into the room carrying curling irons. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said. "What's the problem now?" "The dress doesn't fit," I said. Renee looked me up and down. "You'll survive. It's orange. So. It's completely different from everyone else's." Renee rolled her eyes dramatically. "Not everything revolves around you, Brooke." There it was again, that family trick. They humiliate you, then accuse you of selfishness for noticing. I looked back toward the garment rack, and that's when I saw them. 2 extra lavender gowns hanging behind the others. One looked almost exactly my size. Sloane followed my gaze instantly. Without turning around, she said casually, "Those are backups. You said this was the only dress left." "It is." "No," I said slowly, "it isn't." The room went quiet. For one tiny second, the truth stood there between all of us. Visible, undeniable. Then Sloane smiled again, cold this time. "You are not ruining my wedding because you're insecure." And just like that, the room sided with her, not because she was right. Because siding with the bride was easier than acknowledging cruelty. I stood in that little linen closet staring at myself in the mirror, while the sounds of laughter floated in from the bridal suite down the hall. 7 bridesmaids laughing together. 7 matching lavender gowns. And me in orange polyester held together with bent safety pins. For a second, I almost left. I really did. I could have walked straight out of the hotel, gotten into my car, and driven the 4 hours back to Raleigh before anyone even noticed I was gone. But then I heard my mother's voice from the hallway. "Make sure Brooke stays toward the back in photos." A pause, then Sloane laughing softly. "Oh, trust me, nobody's going to miss the point." The point, that's when it finally clicked. The dress wasn't an accident. It wasn't poor planning. It wasn't the only one left. It was deliberate, a visual message. They wanted me to look ridiculous, not because I'd done something wrong. Because they needed me diminished for Sloane's performance to work. And suddenly all the weird comments from the rehearsal dinner made sense. The pitying smiles, the sister with issues remark. The careful distance people kept placing between me and Sloane. They'd already been told a story about me before I ever arrived. I just didn't know the details yet. So I fixed the safety pin one more time, straightened my shoulders, and walked back out. The ceremony took place in the Whitlock family gardens that afternoon beneath a massive stone arch covered in white roses. Everything looked impossibly expensive: rows of white chairs, string quartet music, champagne stations hidden among trimmed hedges, the kind of wedding magazines describe as timeless elegance. And then there was me, a walking traffic cone standing at the far edge of the bridal line. Even the bouquets made the point obvious. The other bridesmaids carried lavender roses. Mine was white hydrangeas. Wrong flowers, wrong color, wrong everything. During the ceremony, I caught people staring, not openly, quick glances, confused expressions, whispers behind folded programs, and every single time I looked towards Sloane, she wore the exact same expression: satisfied. Like she was watching a plan unfold perfectly. The photographer made it worse afterward. Lavender gowns in front, he called while arranging everyone on the stone staircase. Then he looked at me, and orange maybe toward the back. I moved silently. He took several photos, then stopped. Actually, could you shift left? The color balance is getting weird. I shifted. More photos, then another pause. You know what? Maybe just step out for a few solo bride shots first. Nobody called me back. Not Sloane, not my mother. Nobody. I stood beside a hedge while they took family photo after family photo without me in them. At one point, I watched my mother whisper something into the photographer's ear. After that, he stopped pretending altogether. I was done being included. That should have been the moment I left, but I stayed. Because a lifetime of being the responsible daughter had trained me to survive humiliation quietly. Cocktail hour took place on the east terrace overlooking the vineyard. I stood near the railing drinking sparkling water while groups of guests mingled around me. That's when I heard Sloane speaking to one of Daniel's wealthy relatives. I put myself through engineering school, she said smoothly. My entire body froze. The woman looked impressed. Oh really? Sloane nodded modestly. Community college first, then state. I worked nights waitressing while finishing my degree. My grip tightened around the glass so hard I thought it might crack. Those were my words, my life, my history, every piece of it stolen cleanly and delivered with practiced humility. And now she co-owns a firm in Raleigh, the woman said. Sloane smiled. It's small but meaningful. I like building things that matter. I actually felt dizzy. Structural engineering was not a casual lie. It's licensed work. Years of education, exams, field experience, long nights, stress fractures in parking garages at 2 a.m., bridge inspections during thunderstorms, and my sister was wearing a designer wedding gown while claiming it like a personality accessory. I confronted her 20 minutes later near the dessert tables. You're telling people my life story. She barely blinked. What are you talking about? You just told Daniel's aunt you're a structural engineer. She sighed dramatically. Oh my God, Brooke, that's my degree. You're causing a scene. I'm literally speaking quietly, but she'd already raised her voice slightly, just enough for nearby guests to notice tension, just enough to make me look unstable. Then she leaned closer and delivered the real attack softly enough that only I could hear it. This is why nobody takes you seriously. Her eyes flicked toward my dress. You look insane. Then she smiled and walked away. And in that moment, I understood the full architecture of what they'd built around me. The orange dress wasn't random humiliation. It was credibility destruction. If I objected to anything, I'd just become the jealous, unstable sister making drama at a wedding while dressed like a circus tent. Every detail had been engineered. I found my mother afterward near the hallway outside the ballroom. She's telling people she has my degree. My mother's expression hardened instantly. Lower your voice. She's literally pretending to be me. The Whitlocks have expectations. I stared at her. What does that even mean? It means Sloane needed to present herself properly. She stole my entire life story. And honestly, my mother snapped quietly, you should be grateful someone in this family knows how to present success attractively. That sentence hurt more than the dress, more than the lies, because it revealed the truth underneath everything. My accomplishments had value, just not attached to me. Sloane could wear my life like jewelry because she was the prettier daughter, the socially acceptable daughter, the daughter people preferred seeing in photographs. Then my mother said something that finally shattered whatever denial I still had left. We explained your situation to Daniel's family already. My situation. I felt cold all over. What did you tell them? That after your grandmother died you became difficult, withdrawn, emotionally unstable. I couldn't breathe for a second. My grandmother Ruth had died holding my hand after I spent 3 years caring for her. 3 years bathing her, managing medications, sleeping in a chair beside her bed during hospice. Sloane visited twice, and now they'd turned my grief into a character flaw so Sloane could steal the caregiving story too. I walked away before I said something unforgivable. Dinner began shortly after. I was seated at table 14 near the kitchen doors beside relatives of the catering company. Not family, not bridal party, not even friends. Just hidden, halfway through the salad course, Daniel sat across from me unexpectedly. He looked nervous. "Thank you for coming today," he said kindly. "I know it probably wasn't easy considering everything." I stared at him. "Considering what exactly?" He hesitated. "Sloane said things have been hard for you for a while." There it was, the story, fed carefully to everyone around me. "She said you struggled after your grandmother passed." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the cruelty was so complete it became surreal. And Daniel, poor Daniel, genuinely believed he was being compassionate. "She told us you've been trying to find stability again." Find stability. I owned a successful engineering firm. Meanwhile, Sloane's rent was being secretly covered by our parents. But reality didn't matter anymore. Presentation did. That's when I decided I was leaving after dinner. Quietly, no confrontation. No scene. I'd disappear from their lives completely after tonight. No calls, no holidays, nothing. I went to retrieve my coat before the speeches began. And that's where everything changed. Margaret Whitlock was sitting alone near the coat check hallway waiting for me. Not accidentally. Waiting. "You're the engineer," she said calmly. Not a question. I stopped cold. "How do you know that?" "I make a habit of verifying people before they marry into my family." Her eyes moved briefly toward my dress. "Interesting choice of bridesmaid attire." "It was the only one left," I said automatically. Something flickered in her expression. Not amusement, confirmation. "No," she said softly. "I don't believe it was." Then she looked directly at me and said the sentence that changed the entire night. "You should stay for the speeches." I almost asked why, but something in her face stopped me. She already knew, maybe not everything, but enough, so I stayed. And during the toast portion of the reception, everything finally collapsed. The maid of honor gave a glowing speech about Sloane's resilience, about how she worked nights to put herself through engineering school, about how she selflessly cared for her grandmother during hospice. The room adored it. People teared up. Daniel looked emotional, and I sat there in orange polyester, listening to my own life being handed to another woman while 200 guests applauded. Then I noticed movement. Margaret Whitlock was standing. The entire ballroom quieted immediately. She didn't walk toward the dance floor or the microphone. She walked directly toward table 14, toward me. The room watched in silence as this 79-year-old matriarch crossed the ballroom with her cane, tapping softly against the floor. When she reached my table, she sat beside me and took my hand. Then she turned toward the room. "Brooke," she said gently, "I'd like to ask you a few questions."